For years, the story of Jeffrey Epstein has been this tangled, horrifying mess of power, conspiracy, and just unspeakable crimes. But everything just got turned on its head. The Department of Justice released a staggering 3 million pages of records. It is a completely overwhelming, chaotic data dump. And in this explainer, we're going to try to cut through all that noise and figure out what these files actually tell us. So you've got this absolute mountain of information. We're talking emails, sworn testimony, confidential FBI reports. What have we really learned? What new, concrete facts have come out of the shadows? And, what does it all say about the powerful network Epstein built and the world that might have been protecting him this whole time? Before we even get into what's in the files, the release itself was an absolute disaster. The Department of Justice accidentally published unredacted photos, names, and even the private banking details of victims. Can you imagine? Files would just appear on the website and then poof, vanish hours later. It got so bad that lawyers for the survivors called it the single most egregious violation of victim privacy in U.S. history, just causing so much trauma that was completely avoidable. But as bad as the release was, it's really secondary to what the files actually contain. Because buried in those millions of pages are some truly jaw-dropping new allegations against some of the most powerful people on the planet. Okay, so one of the biggest bombshells to come out was this bizarre email that Epstein apparently wrote to himself. It contains this shocking claim about Bill Gates. Now, a spokesperson for Gates has come out and flatly denied this, calling it the work of a disgruntled liar. But the fact that this even exists in the files has obviously raised some very serious questions. And then there's Prince Andrew. The files contain sworn testimony from a woman named Johanna Schoberg, who alleges that she was groped by him. Now, this is a huge deal. Why? Because it's the second person to accuse the prince under oath. It corroborates earlier claims and puts him under intense new scrutiny, both legally and in the court of public opinion. Okay, this next part is absolutely crucial to understand. The vast majority of famous names you've been hearing, politicians, celebrities, you name it, they're listed in these documents not as criminals, but as potential witnesses. This just means a victim said they were present at one of Epstein's properties or that they could maybe back up a small part of their story. It is not an accusation of wrongdoing. Super important distinction. So how on earth did this whole criminal enterprise even work? How did it operate for so long? Well, the victim testimonies in these files paint a horrifyingly clear picture of this well-oiled international machine, one that was built from the ground up to find and exploit vulnerable young girls. Their method was basically a vile and twisted pyramid scheme. They would target girls in poor communities, lure them in with a couple $100 for a so-called massage, and the promise of a glamorous life. But after the abuse, they would manipulate and pressure those same victims into recruiting their friends, their classmates, other, even younger girls into the exact same horrific cycle. And let's be crystal clear about Ghislaine Maxwell's role in all this. The files leave absolutely no doubt. She wasn't just some organizer or a glorified scheduler. According to sworn testimony from multiple victims, she was a hands-on abuser. She actively participated in the assaults, which is how she earned that chilling description you see right there, the person who opened the door to hell. And make no mistake, the scale of this was just immense. We're talking opulent mansions in New York and Palm Beach, a secluded private island in the Caribbean, and a private Boeing 727 to ferry guests and victims around the world. This was a truly global operation with what seemed like limitless resources. Which, of course, leads to the biggest question of all. How? How did this go on for decades, right under everyone's noses? The files reveal this disturbing pattern of institutional failure, of intimidation, and, potential cover-ups that basically created a system of total impunity. Just look at the timeline. It's staggering. The very first report to the FBI was made by a victim named Maria Farmer way back in 1996. And what happened? It was ignored. More than a decade later, in 2008, Epstein gets that infamous sweetheart plea deal that also gave immunity to his powerful co-conspirators. It wasn't until 2019 that he was finally arrested again, only to be found dead in his cell a month later. And just think about that 2008 deal for a second. For crimes that should have put him away for life, Epstein served just 13 months. And it wasn't even hard time. He was in a county jail and was allowed out on work release for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. It's just unbelievable.
And it wasn't just the legal system that failed. The system of impunity extended to the media, too. Back in 2003, a journalist named Vicky Ward was working on a profile of Epstein for Vanity Fair. After she actually interviewed victims, Epstein allegedly threatened her and intimidated her editor. And the result? The allegations of abuse were completely scrubbed from the final article. The victims were silenced all over again.
So all of this apparent immunity, this untouchable status, it brings us to one of the darkest and most persistent theories out there, that Jeffrey Epstein was secretly working for an intelligence agency. Now, this isn't just some random internet conspiracy theory. One of the newly released documents is an actual FBI form, an FD1023, which is used to record raw, unverified tips from sources. In it, a source claims that the prosecutor who gave Epstein that sweetheart deal was told to back off because, and I'm quoting here, Epstein belonged to intelligence and was above his pay grade. Again, it's unverified, but it proves these claims were being taken seriously enough to be documented by law enforcement. So where does all of this leave us now? I mean, Epstein is dead, Maxwell is in prison, but the release of these files has honestly just raised more questions than it's answered, especially when it comes to accountability for the powerful people in his orbit. And this is where things get really wild. Look at the fallout. In the United States, the Department of Justice says it reviewed all these files and hasn't found enough evidence to investigate anyone else. Meanwhile, in Europe, authorities looking at the exact same information have launched brand new criminal investigations into high-profile figures in the UK, Slovakia, and Norway. How do you explain that? It all leads back to the one question that just hangs over this entire scandal. We have decades of evidence. We have dozens of unbelievably brave victims who have come forward with sworn testimony. So why have so few people ever been held accountable? It just doesn't add up. And this forces us to ask a much bigger, much more uncomfortable question about our own society, doesn't it? Does this entire saga prove that if you're powerful enough, if you're wealthy enough, if you're connected enough, the rules just don't apply? Is accountability optional for the elite? In the end, for all they reveal, these 3 million pages leave you with this chilling feeling of what's still hidden. As one source close to the investigation told reporters, what we know now is just the tip of the iceberg. The terrible truth, they said, is that it is actually much, much worse than we think.